Hello, everyone. Good afternoon from
Hi.
exactly now for folks in London. Um, my name is Anthony. For people that are new to the Lighting Speakers group, I'm one of the organizers together with Carly, which is today not only an organizer, but one of the speakers as well. We have Mark, which is the organizer for the Devoxx conference, and Anna, which like wears multiple hats, is a known Java champion writer speaker at multiple conferences as well. And today our subject is all about call for papers and the process of being selected as a speaker for a conference. I will let each one of the hosts introduce themselves. I would just like to say a brief thank you to RecWorks and the sponsors that allow the aspiring speakers to exist over the past 4 years. And I will send everybody the website where you can join. We generally have events like this every month, so you're all welcome. So I think we can go, I don't know, introduce the speakers in alphabetical order. So Anna, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you. Really happy to be here in front of you, even if it's remotely. And I'm looking forward to give some advice to people that are applying to Devoxx UK, but also applying to conferences in general, based on my experience on both sides, the side of the speaker, aspiring speaker to be accepted, and also the side of the program committee lead. And expectation when I'm reviewing some submission for the CFP. So welcome everybody. Hope you find this useful. And I passed to Carly.
Thank you, Anna. Hello, everybody. It's nice to see some new and familiar faces. So I'm Carly Richmond. I'm one of the developer advocates at Elastic. Also a DevOps speaker over the last couple of years. It's a conference that's near and dear to my heart. It was one of the first ones I ever did. My old boss gave me an encouraging nudge to apply. Let's say that. Um, I'm now a member of the program committee. I sit on the UI UX and the people and culture tracks, and this year I'm also taking on leading the UI UX track. We'll see how this goes. But so far, excited and happy to answer any questions at all on my experience with the CFE process on both sides and how I can help you really. So Mark, you want to introduce yourself too?
Hello, I'm Mark Hazell. I've been organising Devoxx in the UK for around 11 years now, and I also co-founded the Voxxed series of events. So they're slightly smaller events, but all for developers, and they're based mainly in Europe, and there's about 12 of those that happen each year.
Welcome, all of you. So I think that the way that we are dividing this is we want this to be an iterative session, so please ask questions. But before we even begin, I'll ask like the Carly and the other guests to give their views about the process. So like we have a brief info for folks that never been through the process. And then like it's up to you to ask any questions in your mind, okay? So Carly, back to you.
Oh, well, I start? Okay. Um, so I can give an overview and then Mark's going to correct me if I get anything that's wrong, and Anna likewise. So the CFP is now officially open for Devoxx UK. Obviously, the advice we give you well tailored to Devoxx UK. You can take similar tips and advice when you're applying to other conferences as well. So when you're writing your abstract, one of the things I found is one, look at the sections that are there to submit, because the things that you're going to want to call out is a nice punchy abstract that explains what your talk's about. There might be a section for additional notes, which is useful to give a bit more detail on what you're going to cover, potentially explain any relevant experience that makes you qualified for that. and also kind of talk about why people should actually, attend your talk and why it's an interesting thing to be covered. And it's important to make sure obvious things like the spelling and grammar has been checked. You'd be surprised the number of typos I've spotted. And make sure that you're happy and comfortable with giving the talk. If you've got slides or videos showing either the talk in action before or similar content, that's also useful, especially as a first-time speaker, because you can show what you could do, what your style is like, what your presence is like, and things like that. And I found that those things were particularly useful advice that got me my first slot when I was in Devoxxed. But I guess, Mark, Anna, what would you guys add?
I would pick up on a couple of your points and just reiterate them a bit. First up is when you come to submit a proposal and you're writing something, you want to make sure that you're truly kind of knowledgeable about that subject. There's always a temptation to go, oh, there's a tech du jour, there's something trending right now, and to submit on that. But unless you're truly comfortable and knowledgeable on that, avoid doing so just because you think it's going to enhance your chances of being selected. And you're right, there's certain things that you need to do, checking categories, etc. That's really important, because if you submit something in the wrong categories, the wrong track, the wrong type of session, it can fall through the cracks quite easily. And that's not what you want to do. With something like Devoxx UK, we get 1,200 plus proposals in the CFP window. So if they're incorrectly categorized, it's kind of easy for them to slip through, even though we do our best to try and make sure that if it's in the wrong place, that we make other people aware that it should be switched over to them. But the thing I most want to say, and this is my biggest bit of advice of all of it, is before you submit your abstract, before you even go on the CFP tool, is get advice from colleagues, friends in the industry, anybody you trust, and say, hey, I've got an idea. This is what it's about. Would you run through this with me? First up, is it a good idea? And then as you go through the process, share the proposal with them before you come around to submitting, and listen to their feedback, because you can get into an echo chamber of your own mind sometimes. And I think that you want to be getting as much advice from others as possible.
I have a few things to add and a few tips already for the people submitting. So this is from the speaker perspective, some tips. First of all, about the topic. So Mark mentioned that it's good to look at what topic you're comfortable with and not necessarily go for the hot topic on the market right now. I've been personally in the place where I submitted, my first submissions were not on hot topics because I was not working with something that was hot on the market, but was still relevant for a big portion of the developers, as I later on encountered in conferences. Now, how do you know that you're submitting something that benefits the audience of a specific conference, especially if you're coming from outside of the London community, of the Devoxx UK community, of the UK community, like myself? So what you can do is to research on what topics were presented in the previous year. That can help you understand what the conference was looking into. It's not a guarantee that's going to be the same in the following year, but you can understand what's the expectation in terms of topics from the audience like that, right, in the previous year. It can also give you an idea on how to place as level for the audience your talk. So for example, I'm sure all of you here work with very, very smart people that can speak on advanced subjects on their field, and you can understand them. But maybe if you want to address to a diverse audience, you have to maybe level down that speech. And it's always good to do this kind of research to also understand how to level your speech to the audience, which might not be all of them very knowledgeable in the area. And yes, we want to have talks that, welcome as many people as possible, and not just say, hey, if you don't have a PhD in quantum computing, you may not attend this talk. So that's a little bit restrictive. We like those talks as well, but always tailor and try to understand how to tailor your submission based on what happened in previous years. And that's that's something that also the program committee can sometimes help depending on when you submit. So maybe in the beginning, the program committee can give you an advice and respond to you if you're asking a question in your submission, if you're an early submitter. But if you're like submitting in the very last day when 200 other submissions are coming in, it's going to be tough to, you know, give a feedback on the spot because we're also humans. So yeah, we're trying to help as much as possible. But this is one of my tips: check what was in the previous years to just understand how the community is expecting things to be at a higher level.
Can I say something else? And picking up on one of Carly's points is, when you write your proposal, please stick to the point. Yeah, so Anna's already said, talk about something that you research your audience and know what it's about. But long rambling proposals are kind of a bit of a turn off for folks that are reviewing and rating them. And it's important to know this is not buzzword bingo. That you do not get points for the number of buzzwords that you can put in. So it's kind of keep it interesting, keep it to the point. Why is it relevant to your audience? If you can, if you're delving into a problem, explain the problem, explain why it's important and how you plan to solve it, and do that within your abstract, and then make sure you follow through on it and that you can follow through on it in your talk, so that ultimately your last line of your abstract might actually be something to do with what developers can expect to learn, how they can benefit from coming to your talk and what they can take away.
It's very, very important. And speaking about, you know, sticking to the point and avoiding the buzzword bingo, something to keep in mind when you're making your abstract is that, you know, the attendees are going to look at your talk through a small device most of the time, or they have a schedule. So maybe keep that in mind when you're tailoring your submission. So like, how would this look on mobile? That's why the long submissions can be like a turnoff. They might be a turnoff for the potential attendees as well. And yes, while it's called abstract, it's not actually the abstract that we have written maybe in school, and it was like a few pages long. I've done that mistake. My first abstract was very long.
So Carly, Anna, you both spend a lot of time at conferences. So when you're there as an attendee, or you might be there as a speaker, but you've got free time and you're deciding what session to go to next, are you reading the entire abstract, or are you basically looking at the title and the first couple of sentences and going, bang, that's what I'm going for?
Title first.
Fine.
And then I click and read the rest.
Yeah, it's like the title's like the, you know, the way to kind of have something get drawn in. So it's got to be a punchy title, but then I might have two that I'm interested in, because, you know, as much as we're speaking, we do tend to try and stay at the conference and go and catch some talks, because that's useful learning points. So if I'm stuck between two, I will dive into the abstract and see what, you know, what is there. And I do look to try and cover multiple themes as well. So obviously one kind of thing I've been seeing a lot is there's a lot of AI content out there. If you're going to a lot of conferences, it does get really dry and repetitive after a while. So I am on the hunt looking for, you know, things to try and different topics to dive into and learn as well. So yeah, I definitely look at the abstract as well.
And it's interesting you mentioned AI, actually, because I know that as a team on Devoxx UK, there's discussion around use of AI in generating abstracts as well. And I don't know if you've got some thoughts or positions on that.
So I'll start with the elephant in the room. So the elephant in the room being the AI generated elephant in the room. So I think it's undeniable that AI is becoming more of a tool, and you're seeing it even in toothbrushes nowadays. So it's AI everywhere, and we here probably as IT folks know that there are different kinds of AIs. There's machine learning, there's generative AI. So there are different steps of thinking about AI. Definitely AI is a tool, right? And you can see it even in the demos that you're seeing at the conferences is a tool, is meant to be a tool for all of us. So At the moment, the opinions that we have when looking at submissions of AI, we think of the AI of a helper in terms of like maybe spelling or grammar. Or myself as a non-native English speaker can go and maybe ask for synonyms. I can also do that with an English dictionary as well. I pretty much do that most of the time, like look for synonyms in the dictionary. But it can also be nowadays a quick aggregator of information, of course. With the amendment, double check the information that it gives to you. We have seen in the past, I mean, I have seen in the past that there were submissions talking about technologies or features of a technology that don't exist. And it's, while it can be revolutionary and we might think that maybe the person has some insights about that, the abstract was talking about that existing feature, like it has been there for a while. You haven't discovered it as a human. So it's easy to fact check as a program committee member, but it's also easy for you when you apply to fact check that is that information still applicable? And even from the perspective of my role, we had a couple of months ago with JEP, I mean, there was a JDK feature, language feature that was present for like 2 releases. And then on the third one, it hasn't been there even as a preview anymore. So these things can happen. So always keep an eye on what's going on, especially if you're talking about the latest technology that's, you know, evolving and keep evolving in the market. Now, but this applies also to existing technology. It's just a tool, and use it as a tool, and always double check the information that you are obtaining. If you're using a Gen AI, what you're obtaining from there. But again, we're also lacking a lot of originality. And I'm sorry to say this, but I don't think that an AI at the moment can become original without a lot of help from you, let's say so. There's an entire debate on how you can, you know, tailor the prompt engineering and so on and so forth. But still, if you're going through that much trouble of, you know, tailoring something with generative AI, it shows that you probably thought of a lot of things. So why not spend that time in making something original yourself? That's just my point of view.
Yeah.
And add some.
Carly, do you want to jump in on that?
So I veer on the side of caution. I don't tend to use, I'm not necessarily jumped on the bandwagon as much as part of my job. I need to know about RAG and I need to be able to talk about RAG and things. When it comes to generating my own abstracts, I am doing it the old-fashioned way of thinking and writing, because it doesn't seem to me whenever I played with it, it just doesn't reflect my voice, is the first thing. The second thing is not just even in a program kind of person viewpoint, but also from a forum viewpoint, we're not fact checking and correcting things and checking that things are right. I've seen it in abstracts, I've seen it in forum posts and answers to questions, and having to follow up and say to someone, I'm sorry, but is this true? Is this right? Is a bit awkward, but it sometimes has to do. I think sometimes we think that the generative AI tools are infallible and they're not. Anna's right, it gets stuff wrong. So, but I get that I speak to people that find it really useful for things like grammar checking, for kind of helping them like structure things correctly. And I think it's okay for that, as long as 1, you're checking it, 2, you're tweaking it to make sure it sounds like your voice and it doesn't sound like yet another ChatGPT generated abstract. And 3, that you actually know the topic. So by all means, if you want to use it to write a summary and then you check it based on like a detailed talk description, that might be a useful way to do it. But just make sure that everything is correct, please. That's probably my take.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And Peter Hicks also agrees as well in terms of reflecting your own voice there. I think that, and I can see Steve Paul's in the call, and I know Steve's got some. Hello, Steve. And I know Steve's got some points on this as well. But I'm going to say this, that Anna, for instance, is the program lead for Devoxx UK, but also others that are working across multiple tracks. And even on one track, you might be getting 200 submissions in a single track. And even if you're only reviewing one track, it's really easy to start IDing sessions when they come in and going, that's AI generated. And unfortunately, there will be some human bias that starts creeping into the ratings when someone's sitting there and reviewing that many sessions and they go, oh, another AI generated summary. Okay. And you'll probably get marked down. And I'm not saying that that's right, but I'm just saying it's probably a reality that human bias jumps in on this. So I think if you're going to use AI, use it as a tool, not the author. And also really make sure that you fact check anything that's generated. That's key. But ultimately, it's not the end product, and it needs to reflect your own tone of voice.
Yeah, true. And speaking about, well, I'm going to diverge a little bit, but we got some questions in the chat, and I think would be interesting to get some of them for our attendees, so for our aspiring speakers as well. So one great question from Jonathan is about product pitches. Where is the limit? So where is the limit of product pitches? Because we've seen at conferences, including community conferences, they do touch products sometimes. So I have an opinion about that, but maybe Mark, you want to start on this one, and then I continue from the opinion of the speaker. Or Carly.
Yeah, I can do so. An overt product pitch turns into a rejection pretty quickly. Now, that's not to say that products aren't important, because they are. Yeah. Devoxx UK, we run tools in action sessions, which is like delving into a specific tool for 30 minutes, all of its use cases and what you can take out of it. And that's really important, because otherwise, how are you going to learn about it? But it's about benefit, and it's about having a balanced view on things as well. And then I'm going to throw it back to both Carly and Anna, because you both work for companies that have products and you're both speakers. So how do you balance the needs of your company and your day job with being an independent resource for information when it comes to speaking at conferences? And if you say that you don't, then like we're in real trouble here.
Yeah. No. I think that one important aspect about products is actually how open they are. So you definitely are going to have more trouble talking about a product that's not open sourced compared to one that's open sourced. About limits, because that was the question, where's the limit? The limit is actually when you are making an abstract, you actually have to be in the shoes of the attendee. You, the developer, would you go to this talk? Would this be useful for you that you're working day to day with these tools, with these products there? And secondly, as a developer, come on, let's face it, we are turned off when we're reading, this is the best tool that does this the best, don't look at the other something. It's an advertisement that probably annoys us in anything, not just tools that we're using at work. So always put yourself in the shoes of the attendee. If that angle would work, would resonate with other folks, then you have, as Mark said earlier, you have colleagues. Always try on the colleagues. Would they come to such a talk? And speaking of products, there are products that touch our daily life, no matter what. Jonathan mentioned IDEs. I think that all of us are using IDEs when we come, at least when we're not beginners, we're using IDEs to make our life easier. We want to speed up development. No employer is taking on us for spending a lot of time reinventing the wheel with, coding in Vim. I'm just taking here an extreme situation. But really need to tone down to what's beneficial to the developer experience. And if we're talking to more restrictive situation, when we're talking about vendored products, always think of like, what if the attendee doesn't have that cloud, let's say? Would they still be able to take the practices that I do with this cloud here and apply it to their situation? If the answer is yes, then your talk is not a product pitch. It's something that it shows practices, and we have development practices, right? So that's what people come to see at conferences, to learn about what's new in terms of practices as well, learn how to be better being a developer, being at your role. And that's enough from my side. We'll leave to Carly then now and share her point of view.
Yeah, this was something actually I worried about when I started as an advocate, because when I was an engineer, I was coming across like particular, like I think Jonathan, you asked a question at some point about failure stories as well. I tended to focus on my experience, and I wanted to make sure when I moved into being an advocate that I still did that. I didn't want to be the pitchy person of selling everything. And I see that as not, it's not my job. It's more around how can we use things to solve cool problems. So the things that I do is, one, I heavily leverage like experiences I had when I was an engineer and instead talk about how a tool can solve that problem. Secondly, I try and blend or cover free features. I don't talk about the enterprise stuff unless someone explicitly asks me, because it's a developer focus thing. It's not pitching for my product. So I tend to make sure that I try to stick to those. And the third thing I do, especially like for smaller talks, like I might submit a big talk covering something that's more related to tech and ecosystem, but sometimes I'll submit talks that are not related to the product or related to my prior experience in something else. Like I did a bite size last year that was all about social battery. That's nothing to do with Elastic and Elastic affiliated products. It's just useful information. So occasionally doing a talk like that also builds a bit of credibility as a speaker, because you're not pushing products all the time. So those are the three things that I try to abide by, and so far it seems to have worked reasonably well.
I think we
Yeah,
are
that's
wearing multiple hats as people. In
Yeah.
general, regardless of role, you're not exactly, as a developer, you're not a code producer machine. You just don't type things and that. You're still human. You still talk with other people. So you need other skills as well, like social skills of how you interact. You work in a team, so you need knowledge about how the team works. So it's not always about technology, and that's what community conferences, that's what Devoxx UK and Devoxx in general is about bringing together people from with probably different employers, but they are all united by a common goal, sharing knowledge and learning more to become better at what they do at work, regardless if they're called developer, architect, developer advocate, and so on and so forth. They all come there with the goal of becoming better. That's why I went to the conferences as attendee, to become better. That's why I paid for the ticket. I went there and told my employer, I'm going there to become better. I came back. I had some ideas that I want to implement with my team. That's where I see the investment. And I also had fun talking with other people and learning what they do at work, what technologies they tried. It's so interesting to find out what other people are doing outside of your bubble at work. And speaking of our people, I'm keeping an eye on chat as well. I'm moderator here.
Yeah.
Jonathan brought
I
up.
was just going to ask, sorry, are we a hard stop on the hour, or can we carry on and get through the questions?
It's up to you folks. If you have time, I'm happy to stay longer.
I've got
Or-
time.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine by me. Should we delve into some of those questions? So Fahad said that he was a newbie aspiring speaker. So basically, if you're a new speaker, and RecWorks LJC do an amazing thing here, where they've got various initiatives, this aspiring speakers being one, and with that, you work on presenting online to begin with, and then each year we at Devoxx UK also have a group of folks come up and do 10-minute talks from the aspiring speakers. So it's a great way to get on stage. And Fahad did that in 2023. My advice to you in terms of what's the next step is go back to one of the first points that we said about what are you really experienced and truly comfortable and knowledgeable speaking on. And then if you still don't quite know and you're still a bit worried about putting a CFP proposal together, why don't you, this is the community, why don't you send a message out to the LJC and say, is there anybody who's good at this stuff that would talk to me and maybe mentor with me, etc., in order to get that proposal going? It doesn't guarantee you a slot. At the end of the day, something like Devoxx UK, we've got like 1,200 plus proposals for about 150 slots. So almost 90% is unfortunately being turned away, but stay in the practice of it. and keep on trying. That would be my advice on that.
Can I just jump in on that?
Yeah.
25th of November is the RJC Unconference. If anybody wants help with submissions or practice or anything, come along and say so, and we'll help.
Okay, since
Super
we're
guys.
doing the thank you and sponsored segment, I'll just jump in for 30 seconds. Other than Mark and King that are here, and every year, like, we select a few folks from the aspiring speakers group with the help of mentors like Carly, Steve that is present here. We review the talks, we let them practice over virtual online sessions, and then you go to Devoxxed and you have our first conference like Fahad. And many of speakers that, wow, are my heroes nowadays, like back in the day, started at London Java Community before the Aspiring Speakers group, and have became like the people that we all love and adore. So yeah, coming and thanks again, Mark, King, and like all of our mentors that have been giving their time to the community members. All right, I'll shut.
And this is a really important point, actually. So LJC has always been brilliant at doing this, and I've been to a number of LJC unconferences where there's been a segment about helping you get on stage for the first time, and people are really generous with their time. Also, from an organizer's perspective, what's really important is that we can see examples of people speaking, especially if you've not been accepted for a main conference talk before. So if you've got any video, and through something like aspiring speakers, and then how we get that into the Devoxx introducing stuff that goes on at Devoxx UK as a result of it, we record that. And so suddenly you've got a professionally recorded example of you giving a talk at an event. And that is gold dust when it comes to being accepted or putting stuff into a CFP. So get involved if you can.
Perfect. Thanks. Sorry, I've been struck.
Oh,
Okay, cool. Thank you. I just want to quickly say thank you for that. I mean, and I'm struggling with Zoom because I've not used Zoom for a year because my workplace uses Teams, and now I've forgotten how to use Zoom. But unfortunately, I can't turn my video on. But I just wanted to say, just at least speak and say thank you for all that advice. And to Steve, I really wanted to attend the unconference this year, but another complication with my work is I'm actually not working in the UK anymore. I'm out in Qatar, so I just happened to be this week in London. So I'll be visiting Anthony. Hopefully tomorrow. But if anybody else is around, let me know. I'd love to pick someone's brain on it, either today or tomorrow. Thank you.
So
Thanks
if I
for
can jump, Thursday, there is LJC event.
I'll be there.
Oh, okay.
I'll see you guys then. Cool.
okay.
Perfect.
That's great. So
Jonathan, sorry.
Yeah.
Carry on, Anna.
So I was going to move to the next question of Jonathan, which is about top content. But it's great to see that this event here is bringing together not just information about content, but also information about people, how you can get together and how you can improve your submissions, which is amazing. So if we can go back to the content, there's another question from Jonathan asking, balance. So when you do a submission, what's the balance between fun, entertainment, and deep technical content that you should search for? This is going to be the speaker experience and my experience, and I will be admitting here, although Jonathan knows something else, I am not necessarily the funniest person in the world when I'm speaking, and it also, it really depends on how you are as a human and how funny you can be when you're talking, similar to when you're putting this in writing in an abstract. So always try to put, again, an abstract that reflects your personality as well. Again, we're coming back to authenticity, what Carly was saying, like be authentic, and that's where the AI cannot, understand properly that you are, how authentic you are and how you are as a human. So always try to write there something that matches your attitude, your gravitas, your way of speaking, and your way that you are in your real life. Don't try to become the overly funny, entertainer, catchy person if that is not you. The audience still and enjoys connecting with people that are like-minded, and maybe some people are funnier and better entertainers, but still they're great people, and probably you know many of those great people that are not the best entertainers, but you still go to their talks and you listen to them because they're experts and they bring knowledge to you. So be yourself. Actually, that's the answer to this question, is be yourself. And regarding how deep the technical content, again, the research on the audience would help a bit in this case. So now I'm shutting up and letting somebody else to say their opinion and experience about the balance.
Yeah, I've got an opinion on this as well, which is basically read your audience. So different events have different viewpoints. If you go to a very enterprise-driven, very corporate event, they sometimes remove your smile at the door. So you can probably work out whether or not you should be funny as part of your speaking slot or even proposing something. But do yourself a favor as well, which is ambiguous puns in titles and abstracts don't necessarily turn into success. So just think about that as well. But if you do go to an event where they do like being fun, and we certainly try and do that at Devoxx UK, because our philosophy is kind of, if you've got a smile on your face, you're more likely to learn, and it's more likely to stay put, then feel free to suggest some fun, interesting things. And we've got a track called Mind the Geek, which is cool, geeky, interesting things that you don't do necessarily as part of your day job, but it's still great fun anyway. So that could be anything from future technology through to hobby projects.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a mix of both. I think Anna's point on it being authentic is definitely important. So when I've done wacky stuff like the one I did at Devoxx on cake, like that came from a background of actually liking baking shows. Like I wouldn't have went down that avenue if it wasn't attached to a personal interest. And I'd say people will figure out very quickly if you do something that is not aligned with a personal interest. Also, if you end up making jokes that maybe don't come across as sincere, or something that may be considered offensive, maybe try and steer clear of things like that in abstracts and also in your talk as well. So yeah, I think it's okay to show a bit of personality and a bit of fun, but also make sure you are knowledgeable as well. It shouldn't just be all about, being gimmicky for gimmicky's sake.
I have another thing to mention about content, and this one is really important because I've been seeing sometimes talks at conferences, speaking here in general, and I want to touch a little bit about the language. So we don't like things like profanities. We don't like sexual references, even though that maybe they're funny in certain cultures. Try to think at an international audience. This is not just the UK community joining. Sometimes we get people coming from abroad. So if we are going to publish a talk, we really, as committee, we're looking into making it a talk where the people that attend it feel safe. Avoid inflammatory language. So do not, most importantly, do not insult any group of people or profession. And I can speak here from personal experience. When I got to be an architect, I kind of felt bad when I saw talks saying like, those architects, they don't do anything. And I was like, I am working so much. I mean, I get it, that's your personal experience. And it can be some experience, it can be an experience like this for many workplaces. But please don't generalize it for everybody, or don't point to a certain profession just because your experience has been in a way. Professions evolve, and even the developer profession, which we're kind of all coming back to, has evolved a lot. So it's always not to, put people in those groups and point a finger to them that they're not doing something right, or it's not making a good case for you, or might not make it a good case with everyone in the committee. We don't have space.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying
There's
to
no
say.
space for hate, There's no space for hate. I mean, there's plenty of spaces for hate out there somewhere else, but not in our CFP process. Thank you very much.
Yeah, +1.
Yeah.
Maybe we have like several questions here. Maybe I'll read some so that we have some time at the end as well. So Marcin has asked if your proposal was rejected in the past, should you try to resubmit it? So that's an interesting question.
I can answer to that.
Carry on.
So yes, the answer is yes. If you think that the topic and what you submitted back then is still relevant to the audience. We get, how many submissions we got last year, Mark? More than
1,250, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so 1,250 submissions. And obviously we don't have that many rooms for 3 days to cover all the content there. So we have to take some hard decisions on the content, which is great content. And also we align the content to fit well together. So when we're looking at the tracks to make the program, we are looking to send a complex message to the attendees. We're not just throwing content because it's cool and everybody else did it and this is cool this year, we're going to do it as well. So it can happen that maybe a talk doesn't fit this year, but maybe they fit another year. And I can say this, I've seen it maybe happening for the track of people and culture, happening quite a lot, because you know what, teams, they kind of tend to have situations that can be applicable in the following year as well. So yes, I would say to resubmit it as long as you can document it yourself, that is still relevant to the world that we're living in. If you're submitting on something that maybe got deprecated or became something that the world doesn't look at anymore, then maybe it would not be a good idea to submit it again. That's what I wanted to say.
I think you covered it.
Yay. Sorry, Mark.
Another question. Are there any reserved percentages of selections for women to promote DEI?
I don't know about other conferences. In terms of Devoxx UK, we don't put a specific percentage number on, but something that we're constantly doing is looking at diversity and inclusion. I can't even speak now. It's getting late where I am. And that Carly, Anna, you'll know, and you can talk about this as well because you sit on the program team. What we do here is we look at the very best content, and so we don't make any positive discrimination. Ultimately, we say that what we're looking for is the very best content, but there's an extra layer to this as well, and this is our job back before even the CFP opens, which is all of the teams get together, everybody on the program team, and ask for ideas and wish lists and people that they've seen out there. And then our role is to go out there and say, we invite you to submit to the CFP. That's not to say we're going to choose you, but we invite you to submit. And the reason that's important is our role is to invite as many people from as many diverse backgrounds as possible to put themselves into the pool. And then we choose the best content out of that.
Yeah. And looking at the previous years, we kind of managed to have a diverse program, but it's something that comes organically. It's not something that is planned ahead and so on and so forth. Just organically puts together. And probably you mentioned that if you're receiving more than 1,200 submissions, there's plenty of space to look for something that's relevant to our audience.
Yeah.
And I think that when you look at what we do in terms of the speaker lineup every year, I don't look at it and think, oh my God, there's glaring omissions sitting in here. And then I'm really proud because what that tends to do is it relates to an audience and translates into an audience. So anybody who's been down to Devoxx UK in London in May will wander around and not feel siloed in any way, and that it's a big community, and everybody's represented, and that's it's a very, very comfortable place. But I'm not going to keep selling you on that. Just believe me, that is the case. Also from Sweeta as well, you were asking about external speaking opportunities. I presume you mean outside of Devoxx UK. Is there a link to look through? There are loads of CFPs out there, both in the UK and elsewhere. There's Papercall, which has got lots and lots of stuff, and it's a resource that I use in order to keep an eye on things. Carly, Anna, have you got some others that you can share?
Sessionize.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sessionize is usually that. But also, like, probably many of you have an account on social media, and if you're following some folks, you're going to see that some of the folks say, hey, I'm going to submit here, this CFP just opened. So if you're following some of the folks that are, kind of going and are out there, outspoken in the industry, you're going to see them saying where they're going to apply, why they're going to apply to that specific conference. So it's not a secret. And I assume that you're following some knowledgeable folks that share knowledge most of the time, but also share where they're going to conferences before, where they're submitting, so that they are preparing, so you can also like take inspiration from that. So there are also some sites that aggregate the conferences. There's, I think, one that's aggregating the Java conferences. There's this is going to be employer pitch. Dev.java, we're aggregating some of the Java conferences and the conferences that we're going through as well. So there are like a lot of places where you can look for conferences, or I also get some notifications from an aggregator of certain aggregator of CFP. So it doesn't have everything, and it's not all relevant to me, but it's good to get some of that on email. So there are ways to, just get more from the community and find out what's going on in the community. Yeah, that's pretty much what I had as an advice.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'd say as well, it's not just about conferences. You can also, meetups quite often either have an open CFP or they'll look for talks on a rotating basis. Local meetups are always looking for speakers as well, including LJC. I mean, LJC does have a sessionize, but a lot, particularly like JavaScript ones I'm a member of, it's a more organic thing as well. So, but we do have, they're all over the place. It's just a case of diving in and having a look and seeing what you can find. Martin.
Yeah, and Daniel just shared a couple of good links there, developers.events. Yep.
Martin?
Yeah, actually, Carly, you mentioned that. Just I want to say, don't forget about your local user groups. This is the best place to start your speaking career. If give you confidence, it's much more friendly than big conferences. So if you are at the start, just that's probably the best way to start with your local. Yeah. Make train your talk, and then you feel much more confident to go on the stage.
Yeah, I can tell that from the perspective of a local speaker going to an international conference abroad. So I mostly spoke in Romania, where's I'm originally from there. So the first time that I got to speak to Devoxx UK, I was thinking, I'm an outsider from here. I don't know if people here are gonna like me. So I had a little less confidence than I had back in my home country, where I knew the community, where I still feel best because I know those people best. But yeah, the first time, and the first times actually being abroad in front of a different audience, I thought about like, what did I do? So I had like a little problem with my confidence when going in front of a known audience, like these people, I'm not from here, But if you have this courage to go and be at such a big international event and be seen by so many people, it's amazing, and congratulations. So please take the opportunity, no matter the length of the talk, by the way. I was going to say this is very important. Giving a talk at an international conference, even by the way, it's around the corner, the fact that you get to share the stage with so many important people and known people for like 10, 20 years, 30 years is an honor. So take that opportunity. It doesn't matter how much you speak. Even those 5 minutes, I spoke 5 minutes once, are very, very important. And those 5 minutes can be your, you're ramping up to the next stage as a speaker and get the next 15 minutes, next 30 minutes, and next 50 minutes, or 3-hour deep dive at some point. So yes, take everything that you're getting, and don't think that just because you didn't get the big stage is less important. Is you were selected among the many. So just be sure to keep that in mind.
It never feels comfortable from non-native speakers, right? It's more than just a language barrier, it's a cultural, okay, we'll just joke, land, what am I doing here? Are folks even understanding what I said? I just want to give a small shout here for women and GUI communities. There we have our own aspiring women speakers sister group that is always organizing events for events itself, and many other communities around us. So just to remind folks about this. So I'm going to skip the list of conferences and things like that is well answered here in the chat. So there was another interesting question. Is there any suggestion on how should be the pitch or how long it could be, given that you have limited time to read, but can I make it longer than the CFP itself?
I can help initially here, because there was also a question in there, and I think these two are related in terms of any examples of good CFP submissions. I would go to whichever conference, whether it's Devoxxed or another one, go to their previous year and have a look at what sessions ran the previous year and look through, and just take a look at the session abstracts from there. There are no real hard and fast rules over it needs to be 400 words, or it needs to be 30 words, or it needs to be structured in this way. But what you'll start to get is a really good understanding of the way that successful submissions are structured, and you'll start to understand and really see what some of the similarities are there. So I would use that as a way of learning.
And any extra thoughts, Carly, Anna?
So regarding the length, I'm the kind of reviewer that, by the way, I'm a fast reader, but I also like to read everything. And it's not just for CFPs, but in general, I like to read everything, including emails before deleting them, even though there might be some spam asking for marketing or something like this. So I definitely would read anything regardless of length. But as I said at some point, remember that what you're submitting there in the abstract, it's going to fit in a mobile phone in somebody's schedule. So think about how much a person would scroll to actually get to the message of your talk, to what makes your talk different from the other ones, and that they should go to that talk instead of the other ones that happen in the same time. So, and that brings back to the point that Mark was saying, like, yes, those first two sentences matter a lot, and it's very important to tailor your submission to make it interesting. So you can write as much as you want, but please think of the attendee. If they're going to scroll, how much do they need to scroll until they get to the essence of your message? And you can, once again, as Mark said, as Carly said, go and test on your colleagues, on your friends, on your partners, and just, tell them, like, what do you think about this? Would you have the patience to go through this many words to go to this talk? And also tell them, like, please make an abstraction that you know me. Consider that we never met before, and read this. Would you go there? Would you attend this talk? And that was going to give you an explanation on the fact that if somebody would go to that talk. And I think that, and Carly, please correct me, but most of the time as speakers, when we write as an abstract, you are having a story in mind. And obviously the story is longer than what is going to be there, right, in the abstract. So start with the story, keep the story, and then look at what points are important for you to keep from that story to make something that makes sense for somebody, just a developer walking now on the street and coming in your place and saying, okay, there's a talk. Would I want to hear this talk now? So yeah, keep both. I also keep the story because it helps me to remember what I wanted to say there. But I also like to trim down to what's important from that story and see what I can give further to the world.
Yeah, I mean, when I started, I was really verbose with my abstracts, and it would be maybe like it would be 2 really long paragraphs, and I've kind of learned the hard way, like you were talking about, Anna, that shorter is sweeter. Now, not just in Devoxx UK, but majority of the CFP processes I go through have the section for the abstract, which is the attendee viewpoint. And there's normally some form of additional notes, background, audience, some form of place that's an additional set of information for the program committee to look at, where you can put in more detailed stuff. And I can't say long enough, use that. I've seen a lot of people just put the whole thing in abstract and then put nothing in notes. And you need to realize it's that abstract is the hook to get people to turn up on the day. So I try to stick to 2 paragraphs. I know Daniel said, I know you're saying not necessarily and maybe disagreeing with me, has said he ticks 3 short paragraphs. Like, it does depend. I've also had certain CFPs say it's 150, 200, 500 word limit. We don't have a limit at Devoxx, and I think that's fine and it should be that way. But it's important to keep it succinct, because I'm not going to read a 10 paragraph essay on your talk, as exciting as it would be.
And I think we have time for one last question. So also from Martin is, from our experience, is it easier to be accepted to smaller conferences like Voxxed Days? So just for clear for the audience here, in case you don't know the difference between Voxxed and Devoxx, well, Devoxx conferences are usually larger conferences, over 1,000 attendees. And Voxxed conferences are smaller in terms of attendees, but still community oriented, still great content that is being submitted there. I cannot compare the easiness of getting accepted to any of the events because it depends on the competition and it depends on, again, the audience level, expectation of the program committee from Voxxed Days, because they have different program committees. So it's, again, a different story. But Mark, please correct me. You know and see way more than I do.
Is it easier to be accepted? It depends on the location of the Voxxed Day, and that's really what it comes down to. Look, when we set Voxxed Days up, it was because local community groups were saying to us, we want something in our own backyard, which is a professional grade conference that people can go to, and we're being ignored by the big corporate conference organisers. So that's how we set it up. Now, the idea there was to have some international speakers come in, but really these be kind of a mix of a few international speakers and really championing the local talent that was there as well. And so if you've got one that's running where you are, then maybe it's a little easier. I think that the selection criteria is pretty similar. And actually, if you work out the number of proposals that they get versus the number of slots they've got, because a lot of the time they're 1 day, maximum 2 days, they're probably also having to decline almost a similar amount. So is it easier? Actually, I can't say that it is. I've just completely contradicted myself. No, I don't think it's necessarily easier, but they are set up in order to champion local talent. And so, Anna, I know you've been involved in Voxxed Days in Cluj, which is, and also in Bucharest as well. And from that, we found incredible speakers from Romania who have then started to filter through into the international stage as well. So my advice is, I don't think that there's necessarily an easy conference to be accepted to, but you need to be tenacious and always keep trying.
Yeah, perseverance, definitely. You're going to get conference accepts, they're going to sting. You might get feedback that you don't like. It does happen, but perseverance is key. You know, talking about things you're passionate about and things you're knowledgeable about, it will take time, but also starting small, starting at meetups and then progressing up to conferences is how I did it. It helps you build practice, it helps you build experience, and it helps you build your voice. And certainly that's something I can recommend as well. Cool. So I think most people are needing to go, which is fair, and we have overrun. So I'm going to say thank you, Sweta. Thank you very much. Sweta has one final question for us. How do we reach out offline with any questions or queries? I guess
Don't
back.
we have social stuff already
Yeah.
set up?
Uh,
Mine.
I shared everyone's LinkedIn. I don't know if I should or not, but I did. And I also joined the Aspiring Speakers group. We have a Slack community, we have a WhatsApp channel, and most folks here are there. Thank you very much, everyone. Oh, one last thing. This has been recorded and it will be put on YouTube as well. So Mark, King, thank you very much. Hannah, thank you very much. Carly, I'm not even thanking you. You're basically running everything at the moment. So it's great to have all of you here, and we'll have some lighting talks coming. I hope to see some of the people that were here joining us on our next lighting talks session. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for your patience and listening to us. And please do reach out. LinkedIn's the best place for me to get in contact.
Cool. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Bye.